Hey, it's your Lunar Witch, and welcome back to Moon Brews. You're walking in what feels like the center of the earth, or hell, perhaps. A place where the sun does not shine. Bones cascade down the ceiling and walls, and stagnant centuries-old water pools at your feet. A flashlight is the only light source that guides your way, a light source that attracts one of the few living insects down in this hole. Huge cricket spiders start descending from above. As a light source appears in areas that may have never seen artificial light before. These cricket spiders draw nearer and climb down piles of skeletal bones that are lodged into the walls, 360 degrees around you. You are down in this hell with one other stranger, profiled as a cataphile, an urban explorer who understands these tunnels, someone who secretly and illegally navigates and explores a network of restricted tunnels beneath Paris, France. We're in the catacombs. Dun dun dun! I wanted to cover this so badly. I watched As Above, So Below. I have slept on this movie for years. These first person point of view movies, I mean, let's be real, sometimes they suck. I've slept on this and I shouldn't have. It was so good. You need to go watch it immediately if you haven't yet. It has utterly piqued my interest again, within the catacombs, and that's why we're covering this today. So what's always intrigued me about the catacombs was the fact that the entire network of tunnels just exist beneath Paris, and it was someone's bright idea to arrange millions of skeletons into pieces of art all around the walls, ceilings, and floors of these catacombs. So how did this even come to light? How is this even legal? Are the questions that I had genuinely asked myself for so long. And what the fuck kind of energy is hidden beneath Paris? I mean, let's be real. If any place on this planet has energy, open portals, or just completely messed up interdimensional energy, this is the place. A place often related to hell, so deep below the city in France. The Catacombs of France holds the remains of more than 6 million people. Who can even comprehend a number like that? It is an absurd, shocking fact. Each and every skeleton remains was a person, with a life and a family, now to be hidden beneath the streets and catacombs that stretch for miles alongside 6 million other people. It's truly insane. So let's start at the very beginning. What were the catacombs before the infamous, catacombs came about? This area underneath the city was actually an underground area rich with limestone deposits, and Paris actually ended up being built mostly from these limestone deposits, which is super cool. With such a need for this stone, the city was dug into far and deep and was continually mined for this limestone to develop Paris as we know it today. And of course, with the urgency of material and, lack of it, this was sometimes illegally harvested underneath the city. So who knows who was digging, where they were digging, how far and deep they were digging, and what these tunnels ended up actually looking like. These people ended up tunneling long and far, and I'm sure this caused many issues, especially if it was being performed illegally. Entrances and exits unable to be tracked, starting the network of lost souls. Once the limestone was depleted from these mines, the tunnels were left to be abandoned and forgotten about. And since there was so much of this done illegally, the mines started to cave in. The city of Paris started falling back into these underground tunnels in 1774. And I'm not shocked whatsoever that this was the repercussion, of illegal mining. God knows what these tunnels look like before the collapse. Here's the next biggest question. How in the hell did 6 million bodies end up down in these tunnels? Well, it's for a few reasons. So a lot of the graves in Paris ended up being very overcrowded. And the most infamous overcrowded graveyard in Paris was called Les Innocents. There were 2 million bodies packed into this cemetery at that time, which is insane to me. Can you imagine? I've been to, I would say, quite a few quote unquote packed cemeteries where headstones were literally climbing over one another, but 2 million people in one grave site, one cemetery, I can't even fathom what that would look like. And again, the energy of this land must be intense. The catacombs basically started in the late 18th century because of major public health problems arising. Well, Les Innocents was packed to the brim, and bodies that needed to be buried had no place to rest in peace. The smell of decomp was so intense that the public would outcry often. I couldn't even imagine what it could possibly smell like with an overcrowded cemetery like that. Are you kidding me? And the obvious public health concern with disease spreading, as the dead were not being properly disposed of and diseases were allowed to continue to prosper by animal, air, and contamination by touching. They were having a huge health crisis. And at this point, most of Paris's burial grounds were just massive graves, holes in the ground so large that they would contain about 1,500 bodies each. 1,500 bodies, mass graves in Paris, because Les Innocents was too packed with 2 million people. I mean, the population of Paris at this time, hello? There were so many bodies to bury, not enough space to do so because of massive population growth, centuries of unmanaged tradition, low life expectancy, and relentless epidemics. I just think about the plague and the devastation that occurred, during that time, and what was done to those bodies to get rid of them, to avoid disease and outbreak. Just mass hysteria. And I know we're not talking about the plague here at this time in Paris, but they're dealing with a plague-like result. Too many bodies, not enough places to put them. So the solution was to move all of these bodies into the former ossuary limestone quarries that already existed under the city. My apologies if I pronounce that wrong. It's ossuary limestone quarries. The labyrinth of tunnels that extend under the city of Paris span over 200 miles. Endless mazes, corners, and dead ends. The catacombs themselves make up only about 7 miles of this entire tunnel system. And what is accessible to the public legally is only about 1 mile long. Which leads to my next question. What the fuck are they hiding? The first transfer of bodies from the graveyards to the quarries occurred from 1785 to 1787. And these transfers started with the largest cemetery in Paris, the Saint Innocents Cemetery, which is the oldest medieval cemetery that had been in operation for nearly 10 centuries. Hello, 10 centuries. Can we get some of that old land over here in the United States? It's insane how young the United States is compared to other parts of the world, in Europe in particular. I mean, I'm jealous, very jealous. More and more bodies continued to be transferred up until 1814. Tombs, graves, and charnel homes were emptied of their bones and transported into the dead of night. To me, it only makes sense to transfer millions of bodies in the dead of night. No one actually wants to see the process happen, and they said it was mostly to avoid hostile reactions from the Protestant population and the church, obviously. You don't want to be making these people upset by moving those graves. I can imagine it would be very upsetting to see. It's overall upsetting moving a grave. How can anyone really rest in peace after that? You're disturbing their grave, their final resting place. On a nightly basis, covered wagons transferred the remains from most of Paris's cemeteries to a mineshaft opened near Rue des Tombes Tannissoir. Bones were then dumped into quarry wells and then distributed by the quarry workers into the tunnels. They literally just tried to fill all of these shafts with bones, quote unquote, to make more space up above. I do not know, again, how this was legal to do. This would never be the case today. There's just no freaking way. Once this movement was complete, the catacombs contained remains from 5 major surrounding graveyards in Paris. The tombs were later forgotten for quite some time. Bodies disrupted from the ground to be buried deeper and closer to the gates of hell, to be later forgotten by the public. Out of sight, out of mind mentality here. After some time, there was talk about renovation to the catacombs and creating some sort of ossuary decor with these tunnels. The first few years of the catacombs' existence were basically piles of disorganized bones everywhere. If you were, quote-unquote, reburied down there, there's no way you are next to or buried close to the rest of your body. The disarray is immense. Louis Antoinette Hericart de Thury had renovations done that would transform the catacombs into a visitable mausoleum. I'm hoping his main goal was to bring back respect to the bodies down there. And this is where Louis created the catacombs that we know today. A series of tunnels that contain art from shapes built from femur bones, hand bones, skulls, and more. Skulls were stacked to create pillars. Femurs and tibias were used to form patterns on walls, and overhead bone archways were created as well, with sayings that more or less said, beware. So he kept the vibe spooky, that's for sure. I respect that. One room was specifically created with various minerals found underneath Paris, while another room was specifically created out of various skeletons with deformities. His goal was to create quote-unquote beautiful art with these skeletal remains, and to establish a museum and educational experience about how these bones got down there and why. I will say his main goal was to create a space for introspective and reflection, which I can certainly believe this creates one hell of an atmosphere to reflect in. I feel like graveyards themselves create this ambiance of reflection, one that makes it clear that tomorrow isn't promised, your loved ones love you hard, and how beautiful our physical reality really is. But can you imagine the energies and reflection emotions you must feel down in the catacombs? I don't even know if I would be able to breathe, understand, or create a logical thought, truly. I would also have a hard time reflecting upon these remains with fear that many unrest souls may be trapped in the dark and cold catacombs forever, underneath the city of Paris. The catacombs themselves are about 65 feet underground. So if you need perspective on that, it is about 131 steps straight down in a spiral staircase. So pretty freaking deep into the earth. And what literally threw me off my own orbit is the next fact. I had mentioned earlier that more than 6 million individuals are packed into only about 7 miles of catacomb tunnels. And if each person has about 206 bones in their bodies, this means that there are 1.2 billion different pieces of bone in the catacombs. So since there's only about 1 mile of legal catacombs to explore, that leaves about 199 miles left unexplored, and about 200 miles of abandoned and forgotten network of tunnels all throughout Paris. A place that is so easy to get lost in, and potentially die. Because who in the hell has a map of this? One that you can truly trust. We all know the French government isn't handing them out. It is a literal death sentence if you go in inexperienced and alone. I've also heard horror stories where your worst encounter down in the catacombs is another person. Someone to take your remaining food, water, flashlight, and what you had of a map, to be left in the darkness, unable to physically get out, and to die, alongside the 6 million other bodies down there. 99% of the quarries that have been forgotten about are illegal to enter, and apparently they are patrolled by specialized police units that patrol the dark abandoned tunnels. Do I believe this? Partly, but I doubt they're, deep enough into the tunnels to keep the natural explorers out. So what happens in these secretive and illegal parts of the catacombs that span for miles and miles undetected? Well, there are many theories and also facts. Facts that leave you questioning what the fuck is going down. Of course, people believe that black masses and cult activity occur in the dark portions of the catacombs. Sure, they may be, but you'll never know that they're there. What freaks me out the most is what type of monster or cryptid they are hiding down there. Because to be real, this is a perfect place to hide something like this. Coincidentally, there are miles and miles of tunnels underneath Paris that are completely illegal to enter. No known map exists, and threats of death and prison are on the horizon. I'd hide my cryptid here too if I wanted to keep it out of the public eye. One of the most infamous internet legends stem from the catacombs. There has been a video that has been posted on the internet, allegedly from a video camera that was found in the unmarked section of the tunnels. This occurred back in the 1990s, and this footage has circulated for years. And I have major FOMO because I don't think I've seen this, and I still haven't seen this, and I need to go see this. So if you haven't seen it, the video was described as showing this man wandering through bone-lined tunnels. And as the video progresses, he panics, drops the camera, and runs blindly into the darkness. What is insane is that the camera was recovered, but there was no body. What was this person running from? Again, some sort of creature from hell? Or do we think it was more psychological? Had different things happened to him down there, like in the movie As Above, So Below, that made him psychologically insane? Think about the individuals who are connected to the divine, have a strong third eye awakening, and can feel and sense energies. I can't even imagine, even an empath, what you would feel experiencing down there in the catacombs with that immense amount of human being skeletons and residual energy stuck in the tunnels. And lastly, where the hell did his body go? That's where this takes it to the next level of effed up. Apparently, as night falls, legend says after midnight, the catacombs undergo a shift that makes them the literal gates of hell. The tunnels apparently become an extreme acoustic echo chamber, with sounds bouncing off the tunnel walls in all sorts of ways, to completely disorient you. And disembodied voices come from the dark. Like, hello, of course they do. These are disturbed human remains. And of course, apparitions have been seen in the tunnels. What I find so interesting after researching about the paranormal specifically in these tunnels is that the consensus is mostly that there's not too many paranormal happenings down here. Normally, it is fairly easy to find a story, a ghost, or an event that occurs specifically in a place. A very specific one, to that location. But a lot of opinions are actually stating the opposite about the catacombs, and how there are not too many paranormal experiences, and I wonder why. Is it because most of these bodies were released from their souls at burial and didn't follow where their bodies landed up decades later? Or are the tunnels some sort of hell, so that ghosts and spirits don't reside in the tunnels no more, but rather they get sucked into the pits of hell down there? Because I truly cannot believe that there are no paranormal happenings down in these tunnels on a daily basis. Maybe the majority of the visitors are no longer around, and maybe just a few stick around, particularly a woman in white. I did read about her. What I find most interesting about the catacombs are the people who visit these tunnels illegally and experience and see undocumented and unmapped areas of the tunnels from locals that have spent their lives risking their freedom to see more and more. I have a really, really cool story from a blogger called Messy Nessie and their experience entering the catacombs. So Messy Nessie went into the chambers, I believe, with herself and one other partner. They did not disclose how they found their local tour guide of the illegal catacombs, probably because it would get it shut down. But I'm sure if you go to Paris and start talking to the right folks, you can easily be hooked up with someone experienced who can take you down there. But do this all at your own risk. I personally don't trust anybody, so go with that as you will. And I'm going to make this clear. Moonbrews is not saying to go down into the illegal parts of the catacombs. You're most likely going to get lost and probably die, so there's your warning. But it's cool, so read blogs about it, like me. Anyways, they were told to dress inconspicuously, to wear gloves, boots, and bring extra food and water. It was also suggested to bring an ID in case of imprisonment and a rosary for protection. You are entering the gates of hell after all. They called their tour guide Mr. X, so I'm going to use that for reference. They met Mr. X at an unidentified location in the streets of Paris. They quickly moved towards a manhole in the middle of the street, and Mr. X brought out a mysterious tool. As quick as possible, Mr. X used this tool to remove the cover of the manhole, and all three of them descended into the darkness. I bet you can always see people, just descending into manholes in Paris if that's the best and easiest way to get into the catacombs. Like, it's just a regular occurrence, people just dropping into the streets. I think people just probably turn a blind eye at this point. They descended down with the help of a stepping ladder cemented into the wall, a sketchy metal ladder just jutting from the wall. They had found medieval carvings engraved into stone created by miners from long, long ago. Mr. X, the off-brand tour guide, is leading the pack. He's a cataphile, a person who understands the catacombs, understands the benefits and risk of visiting these tunnels, knows his way around without a map, and certainly knows how to avoid trouble. They are like ninjas of the night, but instead like a few hundred feet below the surface. Mr. X visits the catacombs often. He illegally enters several times a week and continues to explore deeper and deeper into the caves, which is so freaking impressive. And he probably has so much knowledge about these tunnels that we truly will never know about. It's a total secret society pact that they have down there, which makes it so much more interesting because they know they don't want to release out information. During the day, Mr. X works as an IT consultant and then becomes a ninja of the night. Once at the bottom, Mr. X explains the code of conduct while down in the catacombs. They are less like rules and more like an honor code to follow. So 1, safety is not guaranteed. And I love how this was disclosed after Mr. X brought these two people down inside of the catacombs. Remember, Mr. X is a freaking stranger. 2, if you find yourself face to face with an unknown cataphile, be friendly and never share how you entered or how you will exit. So, who in the hell knows how many entrances or exits there really are if the cataphiles aren't even talking to each other about how they're getting in or out? And 3, leave no trace. Mr. X turns around and starts guiding the rest of the group down into the tunnels, walking at a brisk pace. Some of the tunnels that they pass are marked with street signs from above, which is a cool thing to do, so you know exactly where you are below the city. But as you go further, most of these tunnels remain unmarked, leaving a dizzying maze to get through. At some point, they reach what looks like a dead end. A wall stands in the way with a small window-like opening, not much bigger than a cat door. The only way through the other side is through that small window, which stands a few feet above the ground. Mr. X swiftly guides his body through the small window hole in less than 15 seconds, peers from the other side, and says, "Follow me." The other two, more inexperienced individuals start making their way through this window. This is where I fear I might freak out and panic. I think I would have to see exactly what this hole looks like, but it sounds absolutely terrifying. And to be honest, I don't know how you're supposed to find these unmarked or anonymous cataphiles to take you down into the catacombs without being scammed or murdered. I guess you just truly have to take the chances and hope to God you're with a kind human. This could be an elaborate murdering spree, and no one would even know about it if they took you deep enough in the caves to do so. And who says this isn't already happening? After everyone successfully climbed through the hole, Mr. X continues to dive and turn deeper into the tunnels. They eventually come across an old unused air raid bunker that lies directly under a post office above the ground. This abandoned bunker is massive. They are no longer hunched in tiny tunnels with walls that nearly touch. Rather, they're in a vast space where they can stand. Graffiti covers the walls. It's honestly a really cool looking place to have a photo shoot. And I saw a lot of photos that they took. Really cool. It gives off like an Indiana Jones vibe. They were able to light their torches and explore the space even more. There's actually a small staircase in this space that leads directly to the ground above. It leads to the bottom of the post office, which is so mind-turning for me. What if these dual staircases lead, right up to a janitor's closet inside the post office with a permanent locked door? And either the employees have no idea that they have literal access to the catacombs, or they just pretend like it doesn't exist. Mr. X had explained that one time he threw an unforgettable dinner party down in this bunker area. Go look up pictures of this. It's insane. They brought in multiple long white tables, plates, utensils, glassware, taper candles, and more. It was a vibe. They had an entire dinner party down in this bunker space. What I need to know is where the hell did they get the food from? This makes me believe, this is alleged, that there may be businesses, in my opinion, that probably do some sort of uncover business that helps with things like this. I mean, how are you getting plated dinner down there in the catacombs? They had to travel all the way to here, unless the post office is involved. Allegedly, maybe, my opinion. I mean, come on though. You just call maybe somebody and go, just say the secret word and, hey, we'll have your kid or food down in the bunker in 15 minutes. Just meet us at the janitor's closet. Like, what the fuck? How else is this all possible? After the visit to the bunker, Mr. X told the crew it was time to head back. To get to this space alone, it took them 4 hours. 4 hours. This is what I'm talking about, Domino's delivering it through a manhole. They walked the 4 hours back to the manhole that they entered, which made it an 8-hour round trip, and reappeared into the streets of Paris, scampering out of this hole, replacing the cover, and disappearing into the night, like a dream, as if it never happened. So this was a very interesting experience to read, but what if the experience wasn't so pleasant? What could happen to you down in the catacombs? Well, maybe there aren't any stories like that on the internet because no one, lived to tell the tale. But let's talk about a few. So getting lost may be the biggest one. We talked about how immensely large these tunnels are, but on top of that, there's no GPS or cell service signal down there. If you are lost, you're kind of fucked. You can use maps that people create, but 1, how can you even trust that they're real or accurate? And 2, I've heard of many people stealing these maps, so you get lost anyways. Another fear is fall and injuries. Rocks down in these caves can be wet and slippery, leading you to fall and hurt yourself or fall deeper into hidden pits. And the biggest thing I think of is the chance of structural collapse. There's not too many ways you're going to survive that, especially if you're in areas that are not patrolled. They won't even know how you ended up there, so that means no help is coming, and your cell phones can't connect to the outside world either. The catacombs continue to be a weird place even in modern times. In 2024, police discovered a fully equipped movie theater down there, with a full-size giant cinema screen, lounge seats, projection equipment, and film. They found films of recent thriller movies and film noir classics. They also found snacks and drinks, and there was a fully equipped bar with full restaurants, table and chairs. I can't even comprehend what this must have looked like inside the catacombs that are hundreds of years old. And how the hell did they get all this stuff down there? Through the tunnels? After the illegal cinema and restaurant were founded by police, the group Les UX took responsibility for the event. Group Les UX is a secret urban exploration group in Paris, and they are known for restoring hidden historical sites and fixing monuments, and apparently throwing parties in them once they are complete. Apparently, to get this entire cinema to work down in the ancient catacombs, a few members of the group professionally tapped into the main municipal power grid of the city and carefully ran heavy-duty cables through the unmapped areas of the tunnels. With this type of expertise, I wonder who really is involved in this group. It may be people of higher authority. In my opinion, allegedly. I mean, how else would you know how to tap into the municipal electricity and then run cables through unmarked portions of the tunnels? To avoid authorities knowing of this scheme, they would transport all of the equipment, furniture, and materials through underground networks at night, smuggling everything piece by piece, kinda how they smuggled 6 million skeleton bodies a few hundred years ago. Some of these tunnels included rainwater sewers, active metro tunnels, abandoned quarries, and underground pipe crawls. I mean, these people have to have a map of every single network under Paris, even if they aren't the catacombs, and making them connect. It's wild. Apparently, they had some sort of defense control to protect their secretive underground event. The group engineered some sort of booby trap warning system. So if the police or other explorers were to get too close, it would trigger a system to play loud recordings of vicious, snarling guard dogs in hopes to make these individuals turn around. The police actually happened across the cinema by accident. They were performing some routine exercise when they happened upon it. And at the time, they didn't have the proper equipment to shut it down. So when the police returned 3 days later, the entire cinema had just vanished. Everything was gone. All the wiring, the seats, the restaurant, the cinema, gone as if it had never been there. The only thing left was a handwritten note taped down by the hidden explorers. Written in French, it is translated to, "Do not search," or "Do not try to find us." So mysterious. So I was also curious about how many deaths that actually occurred in the catacombs, and I can only find one real documented death, which is so shocking to me. And to be honest, I don't know if I believe it. How can you really know how many people disappear and die in the catacombs if there are uncharted tunnels that have never been explored? Or if bodies, sorry to be morbid, decompose and become skeletons like the rest of the catacombs? How would the French government really know if you rotted away only to be left as bones with the 6 million others? Most of the time, these explorers are headed into these tunnels without a single soul knowing, because they don't want to get caught. Therefore, not too many people know if or where they disappear to, if that is the case. But who knows? So in 1793, Philibert Aspret, my apologies if I'm pronouncing that wrong again, a doorkeeper for the Val de Grace Hospital, actually died in the catacombs. It is thought that his light source was lost when he was down in the catacombs, therefore leaving him engulfed in darkness, unable to find a way out. 11 years later, in 1804, his body was found a few meters away from a staircase that led directly to an exit. His body was identified by his hospital keyring and buttons on his jacket. So, my friends, that was the catacombs. The mysteries of the catacombs will forever be stuck in the tunnels below Paris. If you have heard of any other stories about the catacombs, or if you've been down in the catacombs, you don't have to tell me your name, anonymous, please send me your Paris catacomb experiences to moonbrewspodcast@gmail.com, and we may read your spooky tale.